The bunker industry has a brochure problem. Flip through any manufacturer's catalog and you'll see the same images: polished steel hatches, leather furniture underground, families smiling in concrete tubes beneath the lawn. They're selling a feeling hidden, deep, separate from the chaos above. But Cresson Kearny, a research scientist at Oak Ridge National Laboratory, spent years studying what actually keeps people alive in fallout scenarios. His finding was blunt. Protection is mass between you and radiation, not depth. The interior room you can reach in 20 seconds will outperform the buried bunker you can't reach at all. This isn't theory. Kearny published the math. Switzerland built a national civil defense system around it, and the bunker industry has spent 70 years hoping you never find out. Shelter is physics, not cinema. When gamma radiation from fallout particles hits matter, it loses energy. Every 2.4 inches of concrete cuts the intensity in half. Stack enough material, and the radiation reaching you drops to survivable levels. That is called protection factor. And Kearny proved it depends entirely on mass thickness, not whether you are above or below ground. A basement room with 3 feet of earth overhead delivers the same protection factor as a buried bunker with 3 feet overhead. Depth does not matter. Mass does. The bunker industry sells the psychological comfort of being underground, the sealed hatch, the hidden entrance, the illusion of invisibility. But fallout does not care if you are hidden. It cares whether you accumulated enough shielding mass to stop gamma rays. You're not buying protection when you bury a steel box. You're buying a feeling, and feelings do not block radiation. Water finds a way in. Most of the United States sits above water tables within 10 feet of the surface, and every buried structure fights hydrostatic pressure from day one. FEMA 361 explicitly warns against below-grade shelter construction in these areas, citing structural compromise and maintenance costs that never stop. Switzerland mandates redundant sump pumps, backup power, and annual inspections for any below-ground shelter, and even they do not trust passive waterproofing. Cresson Kearny documented expedient buried shelters failing within 72 hours from groundwater seepage, even in supposedly dry soil. Professional waterproofing exists because water intrusion is the default state. You're not preventing a leak, you're delaying one. Then there's AIR. A sealed underground space requires 3 to 6 cubic feet per minute per person minimum to prevent carbon dioxide buildup beyond safe thresholds. Kearny developed the hand-powered KAP pump specifically because mechanical ventilation was recognized as the primary failure point. When electrical or engine-driven systems fail in the exact scenario where reliability matters most, the shelter becomes a tomb. Swiss regulations require dual ventilation systems with manual backup for this reason. Single system dependency is considered unacceptable risk. The door problem is simpler and deadly. Inward opening doors in buried bunkers create an entrapment risk if debris, soil shift, or blast pressure blocks the entrance. FEMA 361 specifies outward opening or sliding designs after documenting multiple fatalities in tornado shelters where rubble-pinned doors shut from outside. Kearny's designs universally use outward opening hatches or multiple exits. If your bunker has one entrance and it swings inward, you are gambling that nothing will pile against it. Finally, cost. Professional buried bunkers from Rising S Company or Atlas Survival start at $50,000 to $80,000 for basic models, and that price includes the engineered systems that address water, air, and door failures. DIY buried options using shipping containers or culverts cost $5,000 to $15,000, but eliminate those safety systems entirely and reintroduce every failure mode. You are either spending a fortune to solve problems created by going underground, or spending less to build something that might drown you, suffocate you, or trap you inside. Oak Ridge National Laboratory tasked Cresson Kearny with one question: what actually determines survival in a fallout scenario? His research isolated the single variable that mattered, protection factor, the measurable reduction in radiation exposure inside a shelter compared to outside. The finding was precise. Protection factor is a function of mass thickness between you and the radiation source, not depth below ground, not concealment, not how much you spent. Mass. A basement with 3 feet of earth overhead and 12 inches of packed earth or masonry on the walls achieves protection factor 40 to 100. A buried bunker with identical mass overhead achieves approximately the same number. The engineering is indifferent to elevation. Gamma rays lose energy by colliding with atomic nuclei in shielding material, concrete, earth, water, steel. Each collision strips energy until the radiation reaching you drops to survivable levels. Whether that material sits above you in a basement ceiling or above you in a buried roof makes no difference to the physics. This invalidates the core assumption. Bunker marketing depends on that underground equals safer. It does not. What matters is whether you stacked enough halving thicknesses, the amount of material needed to cut radiation intensity in half. Concrete requires 2.4 inches per halving thickness. Earth requires 3.6 inches. Steel requires 0.7 inches. Stack 10 halving thicknesses and you are at 1/1000th of outside exposure. You can do that above ground just as effectively as below it. Kearny was not guessing. He measured gamma radiation penetration through various materials and configurations at Oak Ridge. His protection factor tables are empirical data. The implication was unavoidable. The basement room you already own can be hardened to match or exceed most amateur buried bunkers for a fraction of the cost, with none of the failure modes. Every 2.4 inches of concrete cuts gamma radiation in half. The same is true for 3.6 inches of packed earth. The effect is exponential. 6 halving thicknesses gets you to 1.5% of outside exposure. 10 halving thicknesses drops you to 0.1%. This principle works identically whether material is stacked overhead in a buried bunker or arranged as walls, floors, and mass barriers in an above-ground structure. The difference is economics. Above ground, buildings already exist. You are adding mass to standing structures, not excavating from zero. Start with reality. Your house is already doing this work. Standard wood frame walls, drywall, insulation, and exterior siding provide minimal shielding, maybe 1 or 2 halving thicknesses. But an interior bathroom surrounded by other rooms? You have added walls, furniture, water pipes, and structural mass. That is 3 or 4 halving thicknesses before you do anything. A basement room with floor joists above and foundation walls around you? You are starting at 5 or 6 halving thicknesses. You are not building protection from nothing. You are optimizing what already exists. Kearny's expedient shelter designs exploited this principle ruthlessly. Stack books against walls. Each foot of paper adds a halving thickness. Fill containers with water and line them along the perimeter. Water is 7 inches per halving thickness, and you need it for drinking anyway. Pile dirt-filled drawers, boxes, or bags overhead on reinforced supports. Every layer compounds the effect. 24 inches of accumulated mass, concrete, earth, water, dense material delivers protection factor exceeding 200. That is the engineering threshold where 2-week fallout exposure becomes survivable. Switzerland passed a law in 1963 requiring every new residential building to include a shelter or to fund communal construction. Today, they have capacity for 114% of their population. But here is what matters. These are not buried bunkers scattered across the countryside. They are hardened rooms built into the ground floors and basements of ordinary apartment buildings and homes. Reinforced concrete walls, 40 centimeters thick, blast-resistant doors, hand-cranked ventilation, dual exits, and these shelters sit in spaces that double as laundry rooms and wine cellars during peacetime. The Swiss Federal Office for Civil Protection had unlimited options. They are wealthy, methodical, engineering obsessed. They could have mandated buried bunkers for every family. They did not. They chose integrated above-ground shelters because the engineering supports it. When the most serious civil defense program on Earth picks the cheaper, simpler solution, it is not compromise. It is proof the solution works. Monolithic concrete dome homes cost $130 to $200 per square foot finished, comparable to conventional construction, and deliver protection factor 50 to 200 from the curved concrete shell alone. No separate bunker, no excavation. You're living inside the shelter. They were tested at Texas A&M for winds exceeding 250 miles per hour. These structures survive EF5 tornadoes and provide inherent fallout protection from 6 to 12 inches of steel-reinforced concrete. The cost comparison is not dome plus bunker versus bunker alone. It is dome that includes protection versus conventional house plus separate bunker. The dome is cheaper. ICF homes look identical to any house on the block but hide 6 to 12 inches of reinforced concrete behind the siding. Insulated concrete form construction adds $2 to $8 per square foot over wood framing, $10,000 to $20,000 for a typical home, and delivers protection factor 40 to 100 in above-grade rooms, significantly higher in basements. An interior ICF bathroom surrounded by other ICF walls creates nested shielding with cumulative mass. You're living inside fortress walls that nobody notices. FEMA spec safe rooms cost $3,000 to $12,000 installed and achieve protection factor 100 to 500 when placed in basements or interior halls. Marketed as tornado shelters, they provide fallout protection as a secondary benefit without social stigma. They have steel reinforced concrete walls. They are accessible in 30 seconds, and they have no water intrusion and no dependence on ventilation. The safe room costs 1/8 of the cost of a buried bunker, and it works for the disasters you will actually face. Kearny's Expedient Basement Shelter uses materials from your home and hardware store: lumber, sandbags, water jugs, books, plastic sheeting. Build overhead mass by laying old doors across joists and piling 18 to 24 inches of dense material on top. Stack filled containers and furniture along walls. That yields a protection factor of 50 to 200 for $200 to $2,000 in materials, and it is buildable in a weekend. It is not permanent. It is not comfortable. But for the 72 hours when fallout radiation peaks, it can save your life. For 1/100th the cost of burial. Mass beats depth. Access beats secrecy. The shelter that saves you is the one you reach before fallout does. Kearny proved it at Oak Ridge. Switzerland proved it at national scale. The math has not changed. A basement corner with stacked mass delivers the same protection factor as a buried bunker, without the water, the air dependency, the entrapment risk, or the price. The bunker industry sells cinema. The engineering solved the problem 70 years ago.